want to tell you the truth. I don't know one photographer that would tell you to not do a first look at your wedding. It's the honest truth. It is something that will make your life a million times easier. Hey, it's Dee with Dee Garone Photography in South Florida. I'm here to give you all the DIY tips, tricks, suggestions, help with planning, all the things that you may need. And today's topic is a first look. Before I get started, don't forget, like, subscribe, leave me any comments or questions below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on a first look. If you did a first look or you're thinking about it, a first look is the first time that you will see your partner on your wedding day. Tradition has it that the first time you see the bride or groom is when they are walking down the aisle. Traditions, some are amazing and definitely worth capturing and keeping in your timeline. And then there are some that can be manipulated or just adjusted a bit. I speak for myself, but as a wedding photographer, having a first look at your wedding will save you headache, time, stress, anxiety. The first time you see your partner as you walk down the aisle is a very, very special moment. I do believe that seeing your partner for the first time on your wedding day should be a very, very special moment. I agree. Cut it off the night before. Stay in separate rooms, separate houses. Make it a very special moment when you see each other dressed up for each other on your wedding day. I kind of wanted to have this as a step one, do this. Reason one, reason two. But it kind of all blends together. Instead of me giving you a list, I'm going to have a conversation because the first look kind of needs a conversation. And I'm going to talk to you just as I would any of my brides. The wedding timeline gets a bit crazy when you're thinking about all of the different vendors who have to be involved, all of the different things that are crossing paths. The florist and the rentals need to come together. Your hair and makeup artist have to come together. The photographer and videographer have to coordinate with the makeup artist and the florist. It gets a little crazy. A timeline for the wedding, especially when you're trying to fit so many amazing things into 6, 7, 8 hours of time, if you can do anything to alleviate that stress a little bit more, I will always, always, always try to convince you to do that. So the first look, if you can do it an hour or two before your actual ceremony is scheduled to start, you can then schedule the first look and the time that the two of you see each other with no distractions, with no onlookers, and you can have your bridal party and even family photos done before you actually start the ceremony. If you do choose to do the traditional where you see each other as you walk down the aisle, there are a lot of distractions. To act and to stand up in front of a crowd, especially if you're not used to it, and that's not something you do all the time, there's a lot of pressure. It's kind of anxiety-inducing. So instead, why not pick a beautiful, secluded area where just the two of you can go and have this moment together? Myself and my team strive to be in the background. We don't want you to feel like we're even there, especially for the first look. This is a time for the two of you to realize this is your wedding day. This is a big deal. All of the planning and all of the madness beforehand has come to fruition, and you are ready to go hand in hand into marriage. Why put that stress on yourselves to have this picture-perfect reaction in front of hundreds of your guests? The first look is your opportunity to see each other, hold each other, be with each other, take some beautifully romantic, authentic photos. And then once you've had a few moments together to just be with each other, we can do your couples photos ahead of time. You can make sure to kind of get those out of the way. If you don't know, that is what the cocktail hour is actually intended for. So because tradition has you walking down the aisle to see each other for the first time, you can't take photos of your bridal party all together, of the two of you together, of family members and people ahead of time. You have to squeeze it all between the ceremony and the reception. The cocktail hour comes from giving your guests a distraction. You're gone for an hour and your guests can't just stand around waiting for you. So a cocktail hour came about in order to distract your guests, but I spent a lot of time planning my cocktail hour. There's a lot of things that go into it. I want to enjoy all of my cool drinks and appetizers and snacks, and I have to spend my time instead taking a bunch of photos, which I want because this is how I'm going to commemorate this such a big day. You kind of have to play a balancing act. How many photos and how many beautiful memories can I make in half an hour, 45-minute time before I then have to run over to go get drinks and appetizers and maybe hang out with a few people before we go into reception. With the first look, you can pick your background, pick a different location. You can have it at a completely separate site from your getting ready and your venue. Maybe your venue didn't have the beautiful wooded area that you've always dreamed of taking some photos in, or you want to go frolic on the beach and take some cool beach photos beforehand. This is the time to do it. Now with that, the timeline, as I've said before, is a little tricky, can be manipulated if things don't go as planned. The number of times that having a first look has saved the timeline, I can't actually count anymore. Because if the makeup artist is late, if your transportation is broken or delayed, I've had both happen multiple times. If something goes wrong, you have already so much time allotted for the first look. You can rearrange things now. We can say, okay, we originally wanted to do bridal party photos ahead of time. Instead, let's put those with the family photos and we'll capture those instead at another time. Or instead of doing all of the couple photos now, let's move some of the couple photos over to the end and we can do some sunset photos instead. It is very, very easy now to rearrange, and as a photographer, I always make sure the timeline has gaps in it. So when something goes wrong, it has the wiggle room. Giving yourself that extra breathing room will make it so that you can enjoy your cocktail hour, so that you have time to breathe and take that time for just the two of you. Let the anxiety and the stress go. You've seen each other already before you walk down the aisle. That does not take away from the beauty of that moment. It is still a big deal standing in front of all of your friends and family and watching the love of your life walk down the aisle in front of you. There is nothing that will compare, but instead of having the shakes or being so stressed that you want to faint, again, I've seen it happen, take it off your shoulders just a little bit and enjoy watching them walk down the aisle now instead. There's no distractions. You don't have to worry about people in the background. You don't have to worry about someone sticking their cell phone in the way. More on having an unplugged wedding coming later. That'll be up here somewhere. But I will always vouch for a first look, and it is absolutely going into my wedding timeline. I have no problems staying traditional and keeping to the traditional timeline. I'm just here to show you there is another way. There is a little bit more that can be done for your wedding in order to squeeze in those really cool ideas that you had. I hope this helps. I hope that I've given you something to think about. I will always be here to help. Don't worry, more to come on how to plan your perfect wedding timeline. Have a great one. See you soon.